Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. If you're in the Colorado Boulder area, I hope you're staying warm. It's been quite cold the past couple of days. And if you're joining us from other locations, I hope you have warmer weather than we have. I'm Suda Kamali, and today I'm going to be co-facilitating this event with my colleague, Lucas Lorindo. And we're both postdocs here at NCAR. And this event is hosted by NCAR's Fellows Professional Development Committee. And as you know, today we have a panel on careers outside of academia. And I would like to welcome our three panelists, Maria Navas-Moreno, John Monteverdi, and Ray Bell. Good morning, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us. We really appreciate it.
Good morning.
Good morning, John, Maria, and Ray. And I'm not going to introduce you more than that because I would love to give you the chance to introduce yourselves and talk about the exciting work that you do in the private sector and what you enjoy about it most. I think it would be more interesting to hear from you. And once we're done with the introductions, we're going to go and open it up to questions by the attendees, and Lucas will be coordinating that. And so let's start with the introduction. John, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to participate in this. I have a very eclectic background. My degrees are in geology and climatology and meteorology from UC Berkeley and San Jose State University. So I come from a multi-pronged setting where I have interest in many different things. But germane to this particular panel, while I was in graduate school, I was asked to work as a consultant for an environmental consulting firm. And I was essentially hired by them. It was called Enviros. And I did a number of things ranging from trivial things, but proxy climatology for development sites, all the way up through Gaussian diffusion modeling for carbon monoxide concentrations. Eventually, we saw a need in the Bay Area for sort of a niche for meteorologists outside of academia and the National Weather Service in the winery industry. And so a friend of mine and I started Mayacamas Weather Consultants in the hope of providing specialized weather forecasts for wineries. It turns out that didn't pan out. I mean, it did pan out for a while, but it turned out to be top heavy. And it required too much out of me, but I retained Mayacamas Weather Consultants. But I did need to make a decision about a career choice. So at that time, I qualified the National Weather Service, but I had also had an interest in teaching. And so I eventually chose an academic career, even though this particular panel discussion is about careers outside of that. But I maintained my consulting career while I was an academic. I just retired in June of 2020 from San Francisco State University. But I really am an active and was an active consultant all the way through my career at San Francisco State. So I'll tell you a bit more about that in a bit. But I think that's enough for, oh, and I live and work in Oakland, California now. Thank you.
Thanks for that introduction, John. It's great to hear your perspective since you're both in academia and outside of academia in both of those. So I'm sure that our audience is going to benefit from that. And Ray, maybe we'll hear from you next.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Ray Bell. I'm a principal data scientist at DTN, where I get to work on all various industry components pertaining to weather and extreme weather. We work in various different sectors, including agriculture and energy and shipping and marine. So anything where you think atmospheric science or oceanography could be used, we are doing that type of work for various different customers and clients. So I've been in industry now for about 4 or 5 years now. Prior to that, I was in academia, and I'd always been on the interface between kind of academia and industry. So it started when I did an undergraduate in oceanography at the University of Southampton in England. Very passionate about waves and sailing and surfing, and enjoyed maths and physics, so it was a natural fit. Got a bit bored of the ocean and then went to the atmosphere and did a PhD in meteorology at the University of Reading, where things spin the opposite way. But what I was motivated by there is it was a project on hurricanes and climate change. And I had what in the UK is called case funding. So an industry sponsor pays a bit of money for your PhD. And it was working with Willis Reinsurance. So I knew from a very early on phase I was interested in doing research for business and society. It was an extra motivating factor for me. So that was nice. I then went to go do a similar project, basically between research and industry, working with University of Reading and BP as a postdoc. So there I was working on extreme waves. So BP interested in extreme waves for how high to build offshore platforms to make sure they're not at risk. And so, you know, it's a pretty use case where you get to dive deep into interesting physics of extreme waves and what the 1 in 10,000 year wave looks like. But, you know, you have requirements and stakeholders and collaboration along the way. I then moved to Miami, Florida shortly after and did a postdoc at the University of Miami, where I got to work on seasonal forecasting. There I was working on a project with the NRL to do ocean vessel routing based upon seasonal forecasting. So can we help the Navy minimize fuel costs if they go from Norfolk, Virginia to Gibraltar, depending on wind, waves, and currents? So again, that was another project where I was very interested. That was interest from not just academia and not just doing pure research, but to see someone benefit and enjoy it. I then worked from there. That was basically when I jumped into industry. So from then I went to join Royal Caribbean, a cruise line company here in Miami, where I was a business analyst. So I went from doing high performance computing analysis to doing Excel, work in Excel and SQL, which is very much a big shift kind of to jump from those two phases. But I learned a lot during that experience. Since then, I've moved more into traditional data science. So I get involved more in machine learning and doing various different deep learning neural networks, which is kind of closer back towards research. So it was a good experience to get that business insight and what people use day to day with Excel and SQL, but pretty happy doing kind of Python for machine learning and deep learning now.
Thank you, Ray. It was great to hear about that shift in your career and how you dealt with it. And also, I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are doing machine learning and data science, and they would be here excited to hear about your perspective on that in the industry. Maria, we would love to hear from you next, to hear what you enjoy about your job in the private sector and your career path that you've chosen.
Sure. So I am the founder and CEO of Lever Photonics. What we do at Lever Photonics is we translate techniques that are mostly used in the lab into applications in industry and other applications directly to consumers. And really, it's about how we actually turn data into information that people can use to make decisions, whether it is about a process or their health or what have you. I think my academic background is I am a physicist. I have a PhD in physics from the University of Utah. I also have a master's in bioengineering, and I'm a mechanical engineer and a physicist from my undergrad. And I think that I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's something that since I was little, I was the kid selling stuff at school and trying to make money and trying to invent something that people will want to buy. And as I got older, I realized that I wanted to do something to change the world for the better. And that took me to biomedical applications. So with my mechanical engineering and my physics degree, that's what I did. I did the whole thing, 2 postdocs, and then just realized that I really needed to make the decision to jump out of academia. Like, it wasn't, academia sort of had like was the easiest path to follow, and but it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to really put things in people's hands, you know, like, and so yeah, that has been, I really enjoy, you know, the satisfaction that being an entrepreneur brings. And it's just being so close to people and the real world problems. That's what I really enjoy.
Thanks, Mary. It sounds really exciting to be the CEO of your own company and to be an entrepreneur. I'm sure there's a lot of people in our audience who would want to hear more about that as well. And now that we've heard a little bit from our panelists, I'm going to move on to the Q&A session, which Lucas is going to be coordinating. You could either use the raise hand button in Zoom to ask your questions loud, and we would love to hear your voices and see your faces, but if you're more comfortable using the chat, that's great too. You can put your questions there and Lucas will coordinate that. So Lucas, I'll pass it on to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucas. Thank you, Sudé. While we wait for people to put their questions or raise their hands, I'll start with one for myself. And I'd like to ask you, which were the biggest challenge of transitioning from a career in academia to a career in the private sector?
I'll go first. The obvious one for me would be juggling my academic career with my consulting. It turns out that wasn't much of a problem because of the flexibility we have, apart from classes and meeting students and doing research. Our time can be defined the way we want it. It could be on weekends, it could be at night. So at first that was kind of challenging. See, I made a list here. But you know, in what I do, most of the time I've been consulted with on expert witness cases, basically, in which attorneys want advice about a specific event. And one in that kind of context has to deal with other attorneys and with the legal system. And so, you know, you probably all have heard of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is feeling like you're a fraud. And so, you know, to get over that, because a lot of people will stray when they're asked questions into areas that are not their expertise. I guess I would say, you know, I had to learn how to stay in my lane to make sure that anything that I was asked, that I attempted to answer, that I was answering appropriately. So I said that was a big challenge. The other thing is to make sure that everything in my life gets the attention it deserves, and that nothing that's important gets put into the second class. So I would not have done that unless I could. I never would have done the consulting unless I knew how to do that without minimizing the other areas of my life, from research to teaching to personal life, etc. So I guess those were the biggest challenges.
Thank you, John. Do Ray or Maria, do you have insights on these two? What were the difficult?
I can go. I think that there were a couple of things that were hard. For me, it was making the decision, you know, getting out of academia and saying, like, there is not a perfect moment to do it. You know, like, you're always waiting for that transition and it never comes. You just have to go for it. So that was one of the hardest things. The next hardest thing is, I think in academia, we are very used to, if we don't have, contrary to what John just said, from an entrepreneur, I'm expected to have all the answers to all the questions. And so I very quickly realized that I had to learn how to be confidently wrong as opposed to be vaguely right. And so like, even if there are numbers, especially when it comes to the financials of things, I just have to be confident about the things that I say and just being willing to say like, oh yeah, that was wrong, as opposed to, you know, more or less, right? Or that has been really, really hard, because as scientists, we always want to get the right answer. And so, yeah, that's the thing.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, I can add a few comments there as well. I think the biggest shift for me was basically going away from a perfectionist mentality of, I want my plots to be publication ready and to have pretty legends and color bars and labels stuff to a stakeholder says, hey, I need to know how the numbers were last week, or I need to know the performance. And, you know, you have to be okay with somebody giving you a CSV, throwing it into Microsoft Excel and creating a chart based upon that. You know, it's the easy path and it may not be reproducible, but you have to be okay with that. It's a difficult mentality to go from, oh, yeah, I would love this beautiful code to do exactly what I want and to create, but in reality, that's probably going to take a day or two. And as a perfectionist in academia, then you'll still be tweaking it. So yeah, it's just about being okay with good enough, which is a very difficult thing to do. But in terms of business and industry, it's very important. There's, you know, things are time boxed a bit more shorter. So as long as you know upfront what the requirements are from who you're delivering the work to, and then, you know, sometimes the easiest answer is the correct one there.
Great. I don't think we still have any questions for the audience, so I'm just gonna keep going. Like personally, what I sometimes think, like I'm so focused on research, on the skills that I have to do research. So I kind of wonder, how can I transition, like use what I know, like the skills that I learned from academia, and actually applying that in the private sector. So I find that to be a bit daunting, about a bit scary about making the jump and actually transition into the private sector. Do you guys have any insights on that?
I think probably Ray has a better insight based on his background, because I went to create my company because I was so afraid of that. It's like I don't think there is the job that I wanted out there. Now that I have been in industry for 5 years, I think it's a lot of it is terminology, right? So like, I think all scientists are pretty good at project management, and we don't know it, right? So trying to find the right language that describes that skill, I think, is part of it when you're trying to do the transition. And then the other thing, it's maybe I don't have the right answer, but reaching out to people that are in industry, reaching out to the people that have the jobs or the positions that you're interested in, right? And asking them how they did it, right? And asking them about, I think it's very important, like CVs and resumes are very different in industry. And so one thing is to ask other people that, like, can you check out my CV? Does this look appropriate? Does it have the right information for a position in industry? I think that's also very important.
I'd like to make a comment about the perfectionism thing. In my branch of this discussion, it turns out you do have to be a perfectionist to the extent of presentation skills. So, you know, if you have a client that wants a proxy climatology for a development or a home he or she is building, you have to present the graphics in a way that are professional. So I had to really master Excel, Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is really powerful for this kind of thing. And I understand the issue about not being a perfectionist the way academics are, like in publishing a paper. But there's a narrow area in what I do where I do have to be a perfectionist in order to present information in a cogent way to the clients. So those are skills that are foundational. And in any discipline, when you're in school, you learn about Excel or spreadsheets or databases or using mapping programs or Adobe Illustrator. Those are powerful skills that I'm using all the time.
Yeah, on your question, Lucas, about how to find out jobs out there, which may reflect what you're doing, kind of your business-wide day-to-day, it's very difficult. So if you're doing something bespoke in academia, like decadal forecasting, there's probably not a lot of jobs out there where you can continue to do decadal forecasting for a company. So there may be opportunities to do that in different industries, in different sectors. So you have to be okay saying, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to continue doing what I'm doing forever. And maybe within the company, I may be able to find ways to do some of that job. What you can do if ocean forecasting is your thing is do kind of researches, and I'd be happy to speak to anyone here as well if they said, which companies do ocean forecasting, and then you've broadened your scope a bit more. It may not be decadal, but it's maybe providing clients with offshore clients or shipping clients, basically what's going to be conditions that their assets will reflect. And so you have to be kind of okay to go outside of your domain of expertise to find something which may be of interest to you. And in an ideal setting, you could then, once you get your foot in the door, or once you get familiar with that, you may be able to steer it and either create your own company, perhaps like Maria has done, or find a way to do more of what you love in that industry, which from my experience, industry is pretty open to. If you have ideas and things you want to do more of, and you have a business case too there, if you find a good company, they'll let you fly.
Yeah, I would like to add something too that it wasn't mentioned. I think networking is so important. So the people that are in industry, because a lot of the job descriptions will be like very detailed about the skills, and because going back to the perfectionism, we look at those job descriptions and we don't fit, right? And the reality is that no one fits. And so it's really up to the people that are hiring whether they want to hire you and give you the chance to learn, right? And so and that you only get that by talking to people, and that's the networking aspect of it. I will actually, if people are interested in entrepreneurship, I can talk to you and try to discourage you. It's really hard, and it's something that it's your heart and your soul has to be into it. Okay, so I can talk to you about it as well. So yeah.
No, that's interesting. Would you, the panelists, be interested in making your emails available for people, so people can get in touch with you after the panel about this? Okay, we have a couple of questions here. Erin asked, what do you like about private sector compared to academia, and what do you miss?
Let me go there. I'll get it right to the core of what a lot of people probably would enjoy. It's the remuneration. So what I found was in academia, you're sort of undervalued, as any of you that are in academia probably feel, whereas in private consulting, you're overvalued. So particularly in the world that I'm dealing with, by the way, another CCM, that's certified consulting meteorologist, is on, I see in the audience is Scott Landell. He just got his CCM. The hourly rates are amazing, and it does help compensate for lower salaries in the university. So that I found right away. The other thing was the variety of tasks that I'm asked to do go from trivial that involve data mining. You really have to know how to find data sources, and all the way to something that's complex, like the modeling that I was describing. So that's a challenge, but also something that was very enjoyable for me.
Okay. Go ahead, Maria, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. So what do I like about the private sector? I think I like the flexibility, right? Like when I was in academia, I didn't make it to be like a principal investigator. I was a postdoc. So I was always limited by whatever my boss thought was going to be the next thing, you know? Even though I was in a relatively flexible situation, I had these, you know, constraints because of the lab that I was in and whatnot. So having the flexibility of pursuing what I find interesting, which is a double sword, like a double-edged sword, to be quite honest. But that is something that I really enjoy. And then I miss the lab environment so much, and that's maybe why I didn't want to stay in academia, is because I really like to be in the lab. I don't like writing. I don't like, you know, publishing and all that stuff. I think talking about overrated stuff, I think that's overrated. And so that's something that I don't miss.
For me, the things I enjoy about industry is the collaboration and continually learning. So there's so many things I've gotten involved in the last couple of years, going from coding to kind of becoming an infrastructure engineer and becoming a sysadmin to provide a platform to my team. And, you know, so many different hats I've put on over the last couple of years, and someone who loves to continually learn. There is so much in industry and so much within a project lifecycle of finding requirements and how do I present this data and how do I use cloud computing resources to scale my data analysis. You get to be involved in all those certain things. Things I miss, it's hard to know. Like, I guess COVID has put a big stint into kind of interactions, but, you know, academia was definitely very open and very friendly to go have a coffee with your office mate or go for lunch together or beers after work. So maybe post-COVID that will happen in industry, but be interested now. A lot of people are work from home, how to kind of recreate that. But that was one thing academia was definitely good at, kind of social interactions.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We have a question from Ana de Moral Mendes. Ana, do you want to speak on the microphone?
Yeah, sure. Hi. So yeah, the question was too long. I'm sorry. So it's just more of an international point of view. I mean, that's more directed to Ray and Maria, probably. So I'm kind of like nowadays struggling a little bit to know what are my options to switch from academia to industry, just being international, because there's this all the time like visa and immigration things that I always find myself like, okay, probably like a company is not gonna want to hire me because I don't know, I don't have a straightforward path compared to you know, a person in here. So I don't know. I would like to know your feelings. How was your transition? If I don't know, yeah, your experience more or less. It's like probably like to give me a little bit of like ease in this.
You want to speak, Maria?
Oh, go ahead.
I think for me, I guess I would say I'm quite lucky, and it was fairly simple being a kind of in the Commonwealth or from a country with close allies to the US. So I've only basically lived in the UK all my life and moved to the US to run a postdoc, in which I came over on a J1 visa. And even in the J1 visa, it was waived that I don't have to go back to my country of origin. Some countries do have that where you can come, you know, do a postdoc or do some research, but then you're required to go back for a year or so, and that can be waived depending on the situation. So I was pretty lucky there. And then my motivation for moving to Miami was my girlfriend at the time and my now wife. So as a US citizen now, obviously life becomes easier. But to you, I would say, you know, if you're good enough and you can demonstrate that you fit the needs of a company, like they'll figure it out. Like, you know, you can demonstrate your skills and how you fit in what are required. Like, I wouldn't worry about it. The big tech companies hire a lot from India, and you know, there is lots of visa requirements there, but you know, they have streamlined that process of how do we get this kind of the world's best tech people in our doors and stuff. So they're a big enough company and stuff, and you have the skills and there's mutual interest, they'll figure it out for you.
From experience, I happen to know a lot about the immigration system because I have had the whole alphabet of visas. I came here with an F1 to be a student, then I transitioned to a J1. I did have to go to my country of origin, like it was required, so I had to apply for a waiver. And maybe, I mean, if I don't know how many postdocs are in the audience with J1s, but they are going to be familiar with that particular thing. That I was fortunate that my country of origin, which is Colombia, didn't want physicists. And so they just let me go. But then if you do that, then your immigration pathways start to get a little bit more limited. So at that point, once you have the waiver, you can no longer be a J1. So you have to find another visa, right? And I agree with Ray 100%. You just find the job, apply for the job, talk to the people. In the job positions, many of them state whether they are willing to do to help you with the immigration status or not. And so just you can figure out that not all of them will say it, but you can if it doesn't say, just assume that they will help you get that H1 visa. It is hard. I'm not going to lie, it's going to be really hard. There is one alternative, and is if you are a scientist and you're good, I'm sure everybody is, look into alien of extraordinary skills. And so that is when you yourself sponsor your own green card. And there are certain requirements that are not insane, okay? They are actually fairly reasonable, where you can, it's a lot of paperwork. It's, again, this, by the way, doesn't constitute any immigration advice. I'm not a lawyer, but the way we've learned it is from other friends that have done it. And so you can actually sponsor your own green card. And it's really encouraging for a lot of people. So just think about that. It's not, you just not necessarily have to rely on the company. There are also other visas, not just the H1, the working visa, there is the O visa. There are other types of visas that the companies can actually sponsor. And so just inform yourself about all the different possibilities. And so you can work with the company. It's definitely going to be a joint, it's going to be a joint effort. It's not going to be on them or on you to find the right pathway. You have to work together to find the right pathway.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much.
Lucas, sorry to interrupt you. We just had a question above that we missed from Val, and I guess that could be for Maria or John. Could you please talk about how you got going and funded yourself while you were developing a client base? And maybe Ray has some experience in that too.
So I didn't need funding since I was an academic. I already had a salary, but in terms of getting a client base, at one point when I first started getting going in this, which would have been in the 1990s, there was a huge need for expert witness and expert advice in the area of meteorology and climatology in the Bay Area. And so those people just surfaced. They contacted me at the university. And then I had to develop an advertising scheme, which I've since stopped, by the way. But you all probably remember the Yellow Pages. I had an ad in the Yellow Pages. So I developed that slowly, and then developed a cohort of other meteorologists who were involved in consulting. Not that we would collaborate on the cases, but at least I knew who they were and I knew what they were doing. So that's the way I got started. It basically was self-funded, and that's different than the issue the question underscores, I realize.
What was the question again? I just want to make sure I got it right.
Let me read Val's question. She asked, can you please talk about how you got going and funded yourself while you were developing a client base?
Oh, this is quite, and I don't know if embarrassing. I'm fortunate and I'm privileged in that my husband makes enough money for the both of us. So I was able to not work and pursue the career. Now, it didn't, I guess if you plan ahead and you have some savings, right? It didn't take too long for us to get our first customer. We also started consulting. That's what we did, because we wanted to understand what were the problems out there that we could help solve. And so we had a pretty amazing network, and everybody that has been in academia for quite some time does too. You just have to be like going out there and be vulnerable and just say like, hey, I email all my PhD classmates and everybody like, hey, I started this company, we are doing this. If you know anybody that could like use our services, right? This is what we do, and just let them know that you send us and we will, give them a good deal. And so, and that's how we get started with our customers. We have since then done the transition from consulting to developing a product. That is a completely different story. And yeah, it's something that, again, I can talk about more later, but that's how basically I got started. To John's point, I think that you always need to have a plan as you outgrow what we call our immediate network, how to keep the ball going, right? How to like advertise, how to go past that people that you know and keep attracting people. I feel like that is something that you can learn how to do as you exhaust that network. It will take some time to exhaust that network. So if you're thinking about consulting, if you're thinking about like a product development, yeah, reach out. We can talk about that too.
Thank you, Maria. I think Risto asked a question that's related to that. He said, I think most of us understand the importance of establishing networks, but we only have experience in academia for doing so. What should be the first step to create a network outside academia?
Oh, I have that. Change the way that you approach conferences. Instead of going to talks, go to the exhibit floors. Go talk to the vendors. Go talk to, if you have people servicing or if you have engineers coming to service your different instruments, talk to them and say like, hey, I'm thinking about going to academia. What would be your advice? Going out of academia, what would be your advice, right? A lot of these people, a lot of the service, like the applications engineers and all of they have PhDs and they have done the transition and they will know. That's usually, maybe I'm not so familiar with the things that people at NCAR do because I'm not in that realm of science, but in the biomedical sciences, one of the first steps outside of academia, one of the first jobs is being that applications engineer. So someone who knows a piece of equipment very well that can help other customers or can help develop other applications. It's a super fun job, by the way. And so, yeah, that will be, I think, the first step out. The other thing is look for meetups and other networking groups that happen in your local area, right? If you're in the Boulder area, those things are starting to resume. If you're interested in, say, like maybe get on board with a startup, right? There are so many events where you can meet the startups, the local startups, and there are huge startups here. Okay, so it's not just like the kind of my startup where you will have to work for free, but there are startups that are actually that can pay you really well, and you will get to know the people in those type of events. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Well, let me add one more thing to what I said there. In this narrow branch of work outside of academia, this is consulting meteorology. I would advise anybody interested in that to eventually get the American Meteorological Society's seal, which basically is certified consulting meteorologist, because then you become part of a cohort that is sought after, because your expertise is already established. So that takes a bit of time and a bit of experience, and you know, it takes a year or so to actually get that certification, but I'd advise that.
Okay, thank you, John.
Most of my experience has been kind of indirect networking. So I think during academia, I was very interested in open source software and blogging. So, and you know, active on publishing my work on Twitter and LinkedIn, just kind of, hey, look at this cool projects I've done, or look at this thing that I'm learning about, and you know, openly share what I'm learning and document it. So kind of have a public portfolio. I think slowly that started to get some attention, and you know, with the last job, I was lucky enough where I basically got a message on LinkedIn, said, hey, I have an opportunity. Do you want to come work for me? You know, where I wasn't looking or had any active interest, but it was just a good fit for my needs. And that was just from trying to be active on LinkedIn once a week or once a month about sharing a blog or sharing something I learned. So I think that indirect networking helps. It definitely does take a long time though. You know, you kind of have to build up a portfolio and be active publishing, and you know, even sometimes promoting your work, which can be difficult to do. Of, hey, look at this cool thing. So that's what my early experiences was around.
I want to build on Ray's answer, and it's also social media is really powerful. LinkedIn and Twitter have a lot of scientists and a lot of people that have done the transition, right? So if you enjoy, or if you're and like would like to explore Twitter, right? The scientific Twitter world is huge, and it's not only academia, it's also industry, a lot of industry folks there. So you can start having those conversations and start having that network that network with them and get to know like them, and for them to get to know you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Kelly asked another question. How would you describe your work-life balance in the private sector and in academia? How does that compare with academia, do you think?
The question is, how would you describe the work-life balance? Is that it?
Yeah, I would think about that too. Like personally, in the academia, I think me and a lot of colleagues, they are way too invested. You know, like we work long hours on just that, and I think what, yeah, when you move to the private sector, how is that? Like the work-life balance improves, is different, it's just the same, or worse? How would you describe?
Well, I make up my own schedule, which again is a double-edged sword. So I have a pretty flexible schedule that way. I think that it's to be an entrepreneur, you have to be very disciplined, and that is one of the hard things. Is to sometimes you wake up not feeling motivated because there was a blow or something, like whatever it was, and to keep going. I think that's the really hard thing. But I find that I've always setting up really clear boundaries about work and your personal life has helped me. And I think it's helped me all throughout my career, even as a grad student. You know, like I always work hard, but I never work past 6 p.m. There was no way. And so there are those things. I think that a lot of this, that like the system, I hate talking about the system, but like it's we are like almost trained as that because most of us love doing science. We should feel lucky and just keep working 24/7 because that's the thing we love. And so, and yeah, you can love something, but you can also take a break from it, you know? And I think creating those boundaries is really important. And I wish that they taught us how to do that from grad school, because I feel so many people get trapped into that. Yeah. And the other thing is, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting too philosophical. I'm going to end it there.
Well, I'd say for me, it was self-correcting simply because I was in academia, and so I had to give that priority. So I simply would not accept contracts. And I also, like Maria, would not let it impinge on my personal life. So, you know, her 6 o'clock rule wasn't quite as stringent for me, but basically that's what you have to do.
I would say I have a pretty good work-life balance now. My position has unlimited PTO, so they encourage me to take time off, and we'll get told off by HR and say, you haven't taken X many weeks off this year. Like, they know it's important for to give breaks and stuff. So I think everyone's pretty good, and it doesn't expect you to respond to messages and emails kind of outside 9 to 5 working hours. And yeah, the encouragement of to take a week or two off at once, and to leave your computer behind and very easily dissociate from work is very, very good.
Okay, thank you, everyone. If anyone has questions, wants just to raise your hand and speak out, please feel free to do so. Okay, we are going, I'm just going over I have some, okay, Robert has one. There's often this perceived separation disconnect between the private sector and academia. Have you left shunned by the academia community or trapped within the private sector once the initial transition was made?
No. I just want to be very, very clear. I feel like everybody felt proud of what I was doing, and everybody like was very encouraging of what I was doing. I feel like when I was a grad student in the physics department, it might have been looked down upon, like wanting to go into industry. Maybe a little bit, but it wasn't very explicit. Now I feel like things are changing, maybe not as fast as we would like to, but I think that there is, the reality is that most of the PhDs go outside of academia, right? It's only, what are the current stats? Something like 20% of people actually stay in academia, of all the people that get PhDs. So just realize that the alternate, like, that the other careers are not the alternative careers, right? Actually, very few end up in academia. So just that is one thing. The other thing is that right now, a lot of scientists within academia want to collaborate with industry. So I have found that, for example, writing grants with people in universities or in other types of like academic institutions has been very, like, I have been invited to do so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Maria. John and Ray, do you have any insights on this?
Ray would probably have more than I would.
I think I echo Maria's statement. I think everyone's pretty excited and happy, and I think it looks good for the university for someone to leave and go on to do bigger and better things, and still have that connection. Likewise, there may be some collaboration or interest in your university may get funding from the industry if the industry is mature enough that they want a grad student or want a postdoc to do some very kind of researchy, which won't be used in industry for a couple of years, but could they give that money back to the university? And I think we'll just see increase in kind of workforce between industry and academia.
Okay, thank you. A question from Yuan Ming Cheng. What is your typical 9 to 5 office hours like, if there's any?
So well, for what I do, there are no 9 to 5 office hours. So I'm available on call, basically, and I don't have to keep normal office hours.
Yeah, I don't have to keep the 9 to 5 office hours either. And I don't think that there are 2 days that are the same for me, to be quite honest. As an entrepreneur, you have to be like everything for the company. So it's whatever is needed, and I do everything from engineering work to accounting to legal stuff. And so talking about learning, I feel like I spend a lot of my time learning about the things that I don't know. And the other thing that I do quite a bit is I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people because I talk to my potential customers. I talk to my customers. I talk to potential investors, potential partners, people that I may want to hire or bring into the company. So for me, yeah, that talking, which you might notice, yeah, it's something that I enjoy.
I've recently moved into management, so yeah, my days are mostly death by meetings, but that was by choice. I'm interested in that career and I enjoy mentoring and leadership. So I have a team underneath me who do a lot of more hands-on than me, but I am their go-to if something isn't working or some model in production is broken or something, and I enjoy mentoring and helping and working with them. So maybe 50% meeting and then 50% of my time kind of project work and also kind of company acceleration and to do best practices around data science.
Thank you, everyone. Another question that we felt it was important to put to you and discuss in this panel as well is that we know that groups that are underrepresented in science technology, such as LGBTQIA+, underrepresented ethnicities, women, internationals, they all face greater difficulties when in both academia and the private sector. And we would like to ask you if you can share some of your experiences navigating through the private sector, and if you are comfortable in doing so.
Well, I don't know if I have a particular experience to share. I think that without, of course, like having it very present that this is something that affects people like me every day, what I try to do is I just go into the room full of confidence, right? And just not thinking that people are going to look down on me or are not going to receive my opinion or whatever because I'm a Latin female scientist, Of course, people do that sometimes, and I just ignore it and I just keep going. I don't know how to describe it other than it's like maybe a resilience like way of coping with what I have experienced in my life. I think that is a lot of people when they a lot of that sexism or like those biases are based on ignorance. And so when you come in and you are confident and you one of the things is you might identify it right away, right? And it's just, and you can stop it and be very gentle. I honestly don't think that most of the people are doing it out of like a mean intention. I think it's just their own like biases that have been ingrained in them by society. And so is you can call it, right? And just find very gentle ways. Gentle is not the right word, mindful maybe is a better word, ways to call it. And people immediately, most of the people, you will get some pushback. You don't care about that people, right? The other people that actually are like, oh, like I haven't realized I was doing that. That is the people that most of the people are going to respond like that, in my opinion, in my experience. And so that's how I do it. And yeah, I feel very, I'm a very confident person, but I'm not the like super confident, like I go into a room, especially like talk about investors, it's all like white male, right? And I know what not all of them, but I know like most of them are like, oh yeah, immediately, whether it is conscious or subconscious, is like, she's a Latin female, has an accent, what does she know? And you just go there, and I just like, I fake the confidence, It's like, yeah, I know my stuff, and I'm here because I think I'm worthy of your investment, for example, right? So yeah.
Thank you very much, Maria. Does John and Ray?
Just a quick one from me. I would say that kind of diverse backgrounds are pretty unrepresented in data science, which is pretty sad, and hoping to change that. And so if anyone wants some mentoring or to meet to see how that can be changed, I'd love to see more diverse applicants in the workforce. And it's just a matter of applying and stuff. And industry doesn't change overnight. But if there are bias and discrimination, then you can document those and make sure that they don't happen in the future. But yeah, I would like to see it be encouraged, and happy to speak to anyone if anyone wants advice or help with anything there.
I also would like to make a comment about getting positions related to data science and the evaluation process. And that is something that as I'm getting into hiring, I've been paying more attention. The process, because a lot of scientists end up in those positions related to data. And there are like those tests where you go and like the whiteboard test where you have to like come up with algorithms and all of that. Those tests are based on, they evaluate like knowledge, but they also evaluate confidence. And so when you are of a non-represent, like a minority, whatever that is, then you don't have the confidence because society has like pushed it out of you. Right? And so don't feel bad if you try that and you fail, okay? Is not you. You are not the bad one, okay? It's the way people are being evaluated. Is not an inclusive way of evaluating people. And so just bear that in mind, because I've seen it all too often, especially with female like programmers, female coders. There is something about the way that we are being tested that we don't excel, right? And it's not because we don't have the skills, it's because they are testing for something other than the skills. And so just don't get discouraged by that, okay? You will find the right position, you will find the right company, right, that will like accept you and value you regardless, right, of your beliefs or whatever. And so just be aware that those biases do exist, and you are like, and at the same time, just, I hate to say it, like powering through them is not the right way, because they shouldn't exist, right? But the reality is that they do. And what I like to think for me personally is that I cannot let them limit what I can do, right? I cannot let society or those biases tell me what I can or cannot do. It's up to me. So, and of course, you can always find an environment that is more supportive of you. Yeah, those exist. So don't give up. Yeah.
I would say in the area of my narrow area of consulting meteorology, this is less of a problem because it's so expertise driven. So the people that seek me out look at what I know or what my degrees are, or what if I have a CCM, and that's how they find me. They don't find me by looking at a picture or by hearing me talk. But I recognize that many people have problems within the area of atmospheric science. I know that.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, sharing experiences on that. We are almost on the top of the hour that we have allocated for this event. I would like to ask you your final thoughts on if you have any advice for people that are currently in academia and thinking about making the transition to the private sector. What would have to say to these people?
I would say that the sooner you make that decision, the better. So you can start doing networking and, taking the steps. I wouldn't say the right steps, but taking the steps to do the transition. But before making the decision, I would actually go and talk to a lot of people in industry and in the positions that you imagine. I feel like a lot of us tend to idealize the different positions. Like we get this like prejudice or this like idea of what it would be to be a consultant or to be a data scientist or to be, or to be a scientist, right? Like I remember being as an undergraduate, and being a scientist was nothing what I pictured back then it was being a scientist, So I think that informing yourself, doing like, maybe I do too much company stuff, but the due diligence about those those type of jobs, interview data scientists. I did it before I actually started my company. I went and I talked to maybe something like 15 different data scientists, and I asked them how much you make, right? What is your day to day? What do you miss from academia? All of those questions for each of them. And then I realized I didn't want to be a data scientist, even though people like idealize them. And I thought it was the perfect job for me before talking to them. So I would say just inform yourself, make the decision, and then be very proactive about meeting people, networking. It's key, whether you go to events, whether you do it the way Ray did it with like creating that content that draws people in, so that'll be my advice.
I'd say it's pretty difficult. Oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Rick. No, go ahead, Rick.
All right. It can be difficult. You just have to change your mindset of putting yourself forward. So be it applying for jobs. I'm not sure if you've seen those Sankey charts where somebody applied for 10 jobs and got an interview for 2 of them and then maybe got an offer from 1 of them. But that is the sad reality. It's just, it can take a long time and you need to be okay with rejection. And we all may have had proposals rejected in academia. It's not a different experience in the industry of applying for jobs and hearing what's out there. But yeah, I would say applying is probably the first step of getting CV and resumes together, know who to apply for. And, obviously if you know someone in the company, that makes a huge difference. But yeah, once you start applying, then you get more familiar with the experience of, okay, what are people in the industry looking for? Maybe ideally somebody gives you feedback on an interview or feedback on a coding experience, says, oh, you could learn more of this. And so you'll tell yourself, okay, over the next few weeks, let me spend some more time honing up on this skill.
And what I do, a lot of it is not high-end stuff in consulting meteorology. I'd say be adept at what many people feel are trivial skills, like mining data sources from NCDC, for example, finding precipitation data, finding wind data. Sort of at the bottom of the pyramid is that. Also at the bottom of the pyramid are those marketable skills that help you present the information. So I already mentioned that. Being adept with weather and climate viewer, being adept with Excel and Adobe Illustrator and so on and so forth. Developing presentation skills, that's really important. At the top end though, never stray from your area of expertise and be confident in your area of expertise. You worked hard for it. Most people got PhDs. You should be proud and jealous of the fact that you have that PhD. That part of the PhD that actually is useful, where you learn how to do research and how to convey information and engage in structured thinking is really important. Even in an area that a CCM would work for an attorney, for example. And so that's what I would say.
Can I say something else?
Sure.
Just when you go to industry, realize that the business model is very different from academia, right? So now you, like in academia, you're doing research to get publications, to get funding, to continue to research, right? That is the sort of like the business model of academia. When you go into industry, is very different. And so you have to be willing to adapt to that new setting, right? Where the different companies will care about different things, but most of them will care about making money from a customer. And so you have to understand that change. And that is probably one of the hardest things for people that go from academia to industry to accept, because it's not about the publication, it's not about the recognition that you have been trained to get, right? It's about the company and how you contribute to the company. So yeah, that's my other piece of advice. Understand that from the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Those are great advice. Thank you so much for your time and for audience to come watch this panel. And yeah, does anyone has any further questions, any further thoughts?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this. It's been useful.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Yes, thank you for being here to all of you. It was really informative to hear all your answers and all your thoughts.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate John and Maria's input as well. It's been great for me to always learning and always interested in hearing new ideas and new ways of thinking. So thanks for putting this together.
Likewise.
Thank you, Ray.
Good luck, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. Bye.
Bye.